確かに目撃者いますね。UFO を見た。
All right, guys, welcome to the Vetted Podcast. We are back, still suffering a little bit of COVID repercussions, but we're gonna make it through, y'all. It's that time of year. Let's be real. The times, they are a changing, as Bob Dylan would say. A brand new series came out on Netflix that everyone's been sort of freaking out about in the UFO community and outside the UFO community. At least in the US, it made number one. It was the number one watch TV show. Now it's at number 3, I've noticed, but it's probably going to remain in the top 10 for quite a while. And just a good thing to bring this out to the public to show maybe a different side of things. It's a great production. It's produced by Amblin Television, which is Steven Spielberg's company. And people are asking, like, how much did he actually have to do, with this show? So anyway, we're going to break down the episodes, kind of what they were about, talk a little bit about it. Everyone had a chance to watch a couple of episodes or all of them. And we're going to talk a little bit about the new David Grusch interview that came out as well yesterday, dropped sort of suddenly out of nowhere. And yeah, we'll jump into that. And I've got news that has not made the rounds of another David Grusch interview that's going to be coming out. So I'll talk about that too. So I found that out in a Twitter space that I listened to that only had like 25 people in it, but I got some big news out of it. So anyway, let's jump in. Let's just start with this David Grusch thing real quick, and then we'll move on to encounters. Yesterday, the Yes Theory YouTube channel, huge channel, over 8 million subscribers, released a David Grusch interview. They followed David Grusch around for 7 days during the hearing and after the hearing. And it's sort of an accompanying documentary to the one Jesse Michaels made. And it's definitely a lot different. I live streamed it yesterday, and so you can check it out on our channel. Originally, when I did the live stream, they delayed the video, so I had the live stream going. Everyone's waiting. We had a bunch of people on. It was great, and then they tweeted out like, "Oh, it's going to be delayed. It's going to be a few hours or whatever." They didn't say what time, so that kind of sucked. We had to stop. I had to stop the live stream. But what I did is I told the audience I would refresh their YouTube page and their Twitter just like every 15 minutes, and I got it within 2 seconds, no joke, of it coming out, and I popped on and did the live stream again. So that was my Sunday, just waiting around for this video. But it was well worth it. We had a great time on the live stream. A lot of people jumping in the chat and going back and forth. It was awesome. It's over an hour. So I'll put a link in this description as well to check that out. There was one new piece of information. He did talk about a new sighting I'd never heard of. And he mentioned some dates of like when things might be happening. So that's, quite exciting. He mentioned February 2024 and the year 2024, next year being like the year of disclosure. That's what's sort of going around the UFO community. Like we are going to find out next year. So sometime between February and December of next year, a lot of stuff is supposed to drop. And yeah, that was mentioned. And he's saying firsthand witnesses. So people who have, put their hands on the craft, worked on the craft, were in the programs, right? These people are going to start to come forward. I don't know what that means. Are they going to be credible? I don't know. He says they are. So we'll see. And then he brought up some sighting. Again, I recommend watching it. It's got some different stuff. It just shows a different side of David Grusch. Very casual. It's all behind the scenes sort of style. At his house, you get to see all his medals, his accolades, like get to know his wife, see him dirt biking and, hiking and just having these casual conversations. And I think it was a good way to get to know the man behind all of this, and see him in a different light. So I did appreciate it, but it is far different from the Jesse Michaels one. So please take a look. It's a great new YouTube channel. I never heard of it before, and they have great videos on there. That this is not what they focus on. So, it's not like they're a UFO channel or anything. They'd only done one other video, I think, about UFOs or alien abductions, and got them into this. So anyway, well worth a watch to look at. So I'm sure you guys will see it this week. I just gave it to AB and Sebastian. I just sent them a leak. Again, it just came out yesterday. They're in the UK, guys, so they're way ahead. When it came out, they were asleep already. So, that's a lot to take in. Again, it's over an hour. It's not like, oh, I'll just sit down and watch this quick TikTok. It's a lot. So anyway, yeah, it's exciting that that's out.
So of all the three David Grusch documentaries that you've seen, which one do you think is best?
That's a good question. I think the News Nation interview is still the best. I do think that, but the Jesse Michaels one it's also really good, but there's nothing. I think what makes the Jesse Michaels one good is the interviews. It's great with David Grusch is in there, but it's more the other segments that Jesse Michaels adds in to sort of supplement the things that David Grusch is talking about. That's what makes that great to me. And in this one, there isn't that. It's all David Grusch and a few other people, Gary Nolan, Jack Valet, and just getting to know those people. So it's just a different sort of approach. So this one, I don't think will have as much pop with a lot of people. But, in my opinion, if you're really into this, it's well worth a watch, as far as that goes. So, and again, the big news that I have is Jesse Michaels in a Twitter space mentioned, I kind of briefly mentioned it in a couple videos I've done this past week, but he mentioned he's going to do a part 2 on his channel. So a part 2, I guess he has extra footage of David Grusch. Probably they recorded hours of interview, right? So supposedly another part is going to come out. But also, Ross Coulthart said that too about the News Nation interview. He was going to be releasing more from that interview, the best bits, as he called it, and that hasn't come out either. So I don't know, guys. I don't know. Breadcrumbs. They just drop us breadcrumbs. So we'll see. We'll see what happens when that'll come out. My guess is they did these 2 videos literally 1 month apart. So from September 1st, Jesse Michaels dropped. This one drops October 1st. My guess would be November 1st. But who knows? I don't know. So anyway, put links to all of those. You can check them out. The News Nation. I'll put the News Nation one, the Jesse Michaels, and then this Yes Theory. And you can see that. So, yeah. All right. Anything else? We'll just jump on to encounters here. I don't know. What do y'all think?
Yeah, I'm not. You're right. We've not seen the interview you're referring to yet. But yeah, I think it's interesting that he's showing a different side to himself, isn't he? With all of these interviews, he's like revealing a little bit more about the man behind the stories. So yeah, seeing his wife and him hiking and all that kind of stuff is quite exciting.
Yeah, he's just hanging out with his dogs. Yeah. Like, it's super casual. It's super just they're riding in cars. The conversations are very kind of just casual. I honestly think that was a great approach because doesn't have a guard up, right? He doesn't have like sitting down, lights. Okay, let's talk, right? It's like you're just getting him in these moments where the walls are down and you can just talk to him. So yeah, I think you can get a better read on him, and if you think he's telling the truth, because it's hard to verify the things he's saying, right? We have no way to verify that, but if you can, your BS meter, you can sort of get, okay, is this guy, BSing me, or is what he's saying he thinks is truthful? Again, it may not be truthful, but I truly believe David Grusch believes what he's saying. I don't get any sign of manipulation or none of that goes off for me. My BS meter doesn't go off, hearing him speak about this stuff. So anyway, who knows? We'll see. So, all right. Well, encounters, guys. What are y'all? What was just first impressions of turning on the show and getting it going? What do y'all think?
Where do you start?
Yeah.
I mean, what
Yeah.
did you think, Patrick?
Yeah, I loved it. Production was great. They told four different stories. I think what I liked most about it is they focused on one sighting, right? Or sightings.
Episode, I liked that as well.
Yeah. They could really dive deep into it. So yeah.
And which was your favorite episode?
That's a good question.
I've only watched 2 so far.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. I don't know if I would pick one over any of them in particular, but there's one video that I'm going to show here on the podcast from episode 4, Lights Over Fukushima, the nuclear disaster.
Oh, I didn't see that one. Yeah.
And I had never seen a video like that, a UFO video like that. And then I went and researched and found another video that's similar to it to sort of help, maybe add some weight to that video, right? Like, okay, this is happening other places. To me, it's just seems unexplainable. Like my brain is like breaking watching it. Like, what is that? Like, what is going on? It just doesn't make any sense. So yeah, I found another video of a sighting in New York that's just very similar. So we'll be looking at that too. Yeah.
I mean, I think, as I just said, I've only watched the first 2 episodes so far, and I think they're kind of blurred into one, to be honest. But I think it was interesting that both episodes contained quite a big emphasis and focus on the accounts of children.
Yeah.
So you had, was it the second one was Australian? I think, wasn't it, an Australian school? And the first, I think, wasn't it, or New Zealand?
No. Africa.
It was in Africa.
Oh, okay, fine. Sorry, excuse me.
There is one in Australia though. They just didn't cover it.
Right.
So. Okay.
Maybe I'm getting confused with what I've read. And the first one was obviously in the UK, but I did think it was interesting that when the headmaster of the school asked the kids to draw what they saw, they essentially just drew what a flying saucer would look like from the TV or from comic books or anything like that. But they all of those kids that are kind of telling these stories now they've grown up really truly believe that they saw what they saw. And the second episode sent shivers through me when that little girl said it sounded like someone was playing a flute. She said there was no one spoke to them, but and she wasn't scared in the moment, and no one touched them, but they could feel and sense messages being delivered. But what really terrified her was the sound. It's giving me goosebumps now talking about it. I don't know why, because the sound of a flute isn't scary, but she said it sounded like someone was playing the flute. And I just think that's such a descriptive way of, why would you make that up? Surely it would be like, if you're going to make something up about aliens, it'd be like, I am an alien, or something, or radars or buzzing or humming or something. That I just thought that was crazy, fascinating. That's the way she described the sound that they were making, like someone playing a flute.
Yeah, let's here, I'll give a little description of that.
Yeah, please.
Of the one you're talking about. So this was a very famous sighting. It's been covered in other documentaries. It says here, this is part of the description. One bright day in 1994, 62 young students at Aerial School in Ruwa, Zimbabwe, had a life-altering experience when they saw spaceships and strange humanoid figures in their school playground. This encounter, widely regarded as one of the most significant UFO events of the 20th century, left an indelible mark on the children, their headmistress, and even a prominent Harvard psychiatrist who came to investigate. Believers raises essential questions such as the reliability of child witnesses, the role of eyewitness testimony in UFO cases, and the need for empathy in embracing the experiences of credible witnesses. So, yeah, that one they actually brought new material to that sighting that no one had ever seen before, which was the one guy who said, I made it all up. I saw a rock and I wanted to get out of homework, so I said it was an alien. Which is like, is that what kids do? Like, oh, I need to get out of homework. Oh, I know. I'll say I got abducted by aliens. That'll get me out of homework. Like, no, that'll get you thrown in the psych ward. You'll be out of homework, but you'll be out of everything else. I found that guy was actually quite fascinating, to be honest with you. He was very, and he's the only kid that is willing or saying that happened, right? All the other kids, and even as adults, like, they're like, no, I didn't see a rock. Are you kidding me? I know what a rock looks like. This one guy was like, I know what a rock looks like. Like, it wasn't a rock. I don't know.
He was quite aggressive, wasn't he?
He was
aggressive. Like, I absolutely did not see this. I made it up.
Yeah.
Some idiot. He was almost like talking about the other kids, like belittling them a little bit. Like, some idiot made a rumor up. It spread. I just went along with it to get out of homework.
It was odd.
He's quite mean.
He seemed kind of off. He seemed off, that guy, right? I mean, like, it reminded me a bit of a junkie, right? So I think they just paid him. He seemed like someone who said, okay, I didn't see it. So, just to have someone of the opposite opinion that everyone else has, right?
Yeah, maybe it was just to be different. Yeah.
I mean, I think you nailed it, Sebastian. I didn't want to say it, but you said it. He did look like a junkie. I'm sorry, but he did, man. He just had this like addict about it, right? Like this.
Yeah, he was on edge, right? This edginess.
Yeah, exactly. I felt the same way. Yeah, exactly. And that just discredited him in my opinion. Like, it just, like, this was odd, but I'm glad they showed it. I'm glad they put that in there.
Yeah, me too.
And then the head mistress, her story about being abducted, that had never been told before. So that was like, what? And this woman didn't see the sighting at the school. She's talking about an event that happened 2 to 3 weeks after that. She's saying she got abducted from her house after it. So the headmistress of the school is saying 2 to 3 weeks after this incident, she literally got taken up into a spaceship. So, I don't know what to make of it, but her story seemed believable. She seemed believable. So again, it just complicates things. I don't know.
Yeah, and some of the messages were interesting that the children were receiving. It was almost about how technology is evil and climate change is coming. This was obviously however many years ago now, so climate change probably wasn't as big a issue or kind of topical thing that it is now, but they were receiving these messages saying, you got to be careful about your planet, you are going to destroy it, all this kind of stuff, which was really interesting. And they all said the same thing as well. All of the kids said the same thing. That was the message they were receiving. Don't get too technologized.
that was a fun word. Yeah. I mean, that's compelling, right? You have over 60 kids saying the same thing. Like, and John,
I mean, what I thought was very impressive.
Go ahead, Sebastian, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, what I thought was, very impressive. Probably the most impressive part of that episode was the whole story around Professor Mack from Harvard.
John Mack, exactly.
John
Mack.
Interestingly enough, he was killed in the UK by a drunk driver. Did you know that? Like in 2004. Yeah. So
wow.
what a coincidence. Yeah. So he basically he put his professional reputation on the line, right? I think what he said made perfect sense, right? So I think that's the way that you have to see it. And I mean, his lawyer who was involved in those sort of bringing those Catholic priests to justice who had abused children, he said, I mean, if you have 4 or 5 kids who say something in oral, in evidence, right, it's enough to convict someone, right? In this where he works, so 60 kids saying the same thing, obviously it has credibility in the real world, right? I mean, you can't discount that, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
it will be impossible to get even if it is some sort of mass hysteria, it will be impossible to get like that many people to to lie essentially, or to fluke or make something up. I mean, that's just impossible, right?
Yeah, you figured some of these kids would have come out and said, I also made it up, right? Like this one kid, right? Like they're the one guy,
Yeah.
right? But they're not. They're still sticking with the same story of what they saw. And they all did draw similar things.
Yeah.
Regardless, I mean, I agree with you, Amy. They're like typical what from TV, right? And movies of this is what they look like. But the similarities are interesting. And yeah, John Mack, one of the most, he literally created the psychiatry department at Harvard. Yeah. I mean, one of the most well-respected people in psychiatry. And the moment he starts talking about this, people are like, oh, you're a nut job. Well, wait a second. He's not saying what they're saying is true. He's just saying there's something here. Yeah, there's something here. Yeah, like these kids did experience something. Like they believe what they're saying. Like, he's looking into the deeper part, and he stuck his neck out and reputation out for them. And yeah, I found that credible. And people, you mentioned about his death. I mean, I read online, like people, obviously there's going to be conspiracies about that, right? People think he was killed to cover up more information or whatever. I don't, not saying that. But yeah, it's quite, it's just fascinating. I mean, it's just a lot of different elements that, you try to discount it, and then you go, well, wait, well, what about this? You try to discount this, go, well, wait, what about this? Right. There's just a lot of different things there. Broad daylight, right? Broad daylight, this happens. It's not like in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere. I mean, this is broad daylight in a school. Everybody's seeing it. And then the headmistress, her account, like, it's just fascinating to me. Could we find out more? I don't know. Right. It's past. So what, I don't know. It's definitely fascinating. So yeah. Do y'all watch the first one? You watched episode 1, right? So that was the one in Stephenville in Texas, right?
Was it?
Yeah.
That was number 3. Yeah, that was number 3.
It was Broad.
Oh, wait a sec. Did they get
number 1 was the one in the UK?
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting, y'all.
Oh, they've changed it for the audience.
That's it. How interesting is that, right? Like, so for me, the episodes are different. For y'all in the UK, Netflix, y'all got them in different order. Okay, that totally is interesting. Okay, so what was episode 1 for y'all?
It was is it Broadhaven?
Broadhaven?
Yeah.
Broadhaven? Oh,
Broadhaven, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so look, I'll give a quick little whatever about it, and then let's talk about that one, because that's the one I really wanted to talk to y'all about and see whatever. So anyway, okay, so it says in 1977, during the height of the Cold War and amidst the release of the iconic film Close Encounters of the Third Kind, a group of schoolboys in the Welsh coastal town of Broadhaven witnessed a cigar-shaped spacecraft rising from nearby trees. This event triggered a wave of over 450 reports of UFO and alien encounters in the area, marking the largest mass sighting in UK history. As investigators probed these sightings, they discovered striking parallels with Welsh and Celtic folklore, where fairies were known as mischievous tricksters. The question arises, were these otherworldly visitors new to the scene, or had they been lurking beneath the waves all along? Wow. So, yeah. What I want y'all to take this over. What Broadhaven? Well, have y'all heard of this sighting? Have y'all been to this area ever before? Are you familiar with it? I don't know.
Never been there.
Never been there.
It's in Wales, I think, isn't it? So it's probably not too far.
Where is that, like, in the UK? Where is Wales? It's near London, like
on the West Coast.
West Coast. Okay. West Coast.
So it's like northwest of London, northwest of London.
Northwest of London.
It's basically towards Ireland, right? So
okay.
It's the most, not the most western part, because there's one to Cornwall, but yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Interesting. Had y'all ever heard of this sighting before seeing this episode?
I think we've discussed it before, haven't
I
we?
haven't know.
I don't know. I can't remember.
I thought we touched on it because is it the Broadhaven Triangle?
Yeah, that's it. I
Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly
maybe
can't
not.
remember. I remember Rendlesham Forest. That's like the one I
Okay.
remember.
But this is the one where they were drawing. This is the one I was talking about, where they were drawing like a UFO, like a space.
They drew in this one too. Yeah.
Yeah.
The kids drew in this one too.
Sort of gray disc type thing that you'd see on TV.
Yeah. They did separate them. Now, what does that mean? I don't know, right? Supposedly the principal or headmaster, I don't know what it's called in the UK, right, of the school separated the kids, and independently they drew basically the same thing, very similar. So, did they have a chance to talk beforehand and say, hey guys, let's all draw the same thing, okay, and make sure our stories stick together? That just seems like a lot for 7 and 8 year olds to do.
I agree.
Yeah.
My nephews,
I agree. That would never happen.
Right? Like my nephews are that age. There was no way in hell that's happening. Like in my opinion, that just seems odd.
You can't get that many people to lie. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Yeah, seems odd. Seems odd. And again, it's not just the school sighting, right? That episode goes on to explain all these other sightings that happened in that area, and they show the map, right? It's all over the place. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. So that's interesting. Y'all hadn't heard of this. Like it's not big in history or something. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Like it's been suppressed.
I mean, what I thought really interesting is basically the thing you just said before about fairies and everything. And then that touches, they had this in all the encounter episodes, right? When we talk about Fukushima later, is there as well. And this basically touches on what we have discussed in previous conversation, right? So it's what these people are seeing. Are these really extraterrestrials, i.e. people from other planets, right? Or is it possible that our world, the world that we live in, has just different dimensions or layers, or places that we can't access, that we don't have access to with our intellect, right? Where all these kind of creatures live and reside, right? And in the past, they called them fairies and dragons and angels and who knows what, right? And when we see them today, we think they're aliens from a different planet, but it's essentially the same thing, right? So it's some sort of outer world creature and reality that does exist, but somehow that we don't have, that we can't access, under normal circumstances, right? But when they decide, they make themselves visible, then we can see them, right? So that I thought is a very interesting thought.
No, I agree. Yeah, 100%. They talked about an island off the coast where the fairies lived, supposedly, in that episode. Yeah, I agree with you. It's quite fascinating.
And for example, with Fukushima, right, there is another Netflix show called Unsolved Mysteries. And it's a bit unfortunate that they haven't mentioned this yet. And Unsolved Mysteries about Fukushima, it's about ghost reportings and spirits, right? A lot of people had seen spirits and ghosts of those deceased, right? At the same time, they see what people think it's UFOs. Now, I personally think, or I think it's at least would be a logical explanation, that it's all the same, right? Somehow it's connected, but it's not really extraterrestrial. It's not really like from a different planet, but somehow from our world, maybe outside of time and maybe outside of our evolution, right? But somehow still of this world,
Yeah, I agree. It's yeah, you're right. Yeah, fascinating. 100%. What do you think, Amy?
I was less, and I'm just thinking about what I can recall from both episodes, and I feel like I was less absorbed in the first episode for us, which is the Broadhaven was, as I was the second. So obviously the second one's stuck with me for longer, and that's what I was thinking about. I'm trying to work out why, whether I don't know, whether I found it less plausible or less believable, or I don't know. I'm just kind of, that's what I'm thinking about in my head. Sure. Why is the other one sticking with me so much? I don't know.
The first one, well, the Broadhaven, to sort of refresh some memory, right? Okay, we had the school, you had the kids that ran out, saw it, they drew it, but then you had this other encounter where this kid was walking down a path, right, to his aunt's house or something, and he saw something, and then it started chasing him, and he ran back to his house, and supposedly other people saw that. You had that
the isolated farmhouse or something.
Yeah,
wasn't there?
the farmhouse of the couple with their daughter who, ran an inn, and supposedly a craft landed outside and left an imprint, an indentation in the ground, and then were visited like a few times over again, and then
wasn't there something along
the twins
lines of, the
twins coming to the door, like, but also simultaneously
also being somewhere else. That was the bit I found really interesting. That seemed to strike a chord with me somewhere, where they were, they visited this house or whatever, and then they called their neighbors a few miles away, and the same figures or same people had also been at their house at exactly the same time. So bizarre.
It just seems a lot to make up. That's
what I mean. A lot of coordination, isn't it?
It's just a lot to make. I can understand someone like camping one night, see something up in the sky, and they just make up that they saw something. Okay. But this is just going way beyond just making up a story. It's almost like something happened. Maybe they misinterpreted what it was, but something happened. And multiple things. I mean, it's just 450 sightings. And that's just the people that called in. Let's be real, right? So were probably a lot of people who didn't want anything to do with it, right? I'm not going to call in what I saw or whatever, right? I don't know. It's kind of like what Sebastian said with the fairies.
I'd love to get views on why people think that, why these locations. So why Rua, why Broadhaven? Is it something geographical? Is it,
what's special about that area? Is there something special about that area? Like in Wales, is Wales known for something in particular? I don't know.
I don't know, but I don't know. Or is it, is it the location, like in terms of where it is on the earth? Does that make sense?
100%.
I don't know. I'd love to understand why listeners or viewers think these places have been picked in particular, if they have indeed been picked.
Great question. 100%. Great question.
But that thing about those two being at the same time. So again, there's like there are these reports from like Christian saints from the Middle Ages or earlier, and they were reported to have the power of bilocation, right? So they could be at the two locations at the same time, right? So it reminded me of that. I mean, again, it goes back into that. We have like recurring mysteries or recurring stories or miracles of things coming up, right? That we know from the past somehow, which makes me think it's somehow all connected, right? It goes back to this fairy, what this research scientist or this journalist, I think he was, said about those fairies, right? It made a lot of sense to me.
I never heard that before. Sebastian, can you just talk a little bit more about that? This bilocation, what's the history on that? That's interesting.
Yeah, it's called bilocation. So there were like Catholic saints in the past, and they were said that the power of bilocation. And even like, for example, a saint called Saint Padre Pio, who lived only in the 20th century, he was said he could be in two locations at the same time. And it was some divine superpower, who knows why, right? I'm gonna send you. I'm gonna share a link here, and then you can share it here in the show notes. In 1 moment.
I gotta admit,
so it's
that's
kind
fascinating.
Of recurring. It's kind of recurring themes, right? We have the same themes all the time, right?
I'm definitely gonna put that in the description, guys, so y'all can take a look at this. Wow, that's fascinating. Holy cow. Okay. Man, Sebastian, you may be right. Like, this all just connected, right? It just, and there's honestly, God, not to diverge, but Leslie Kane, 2017, the New York Times article, right? We've talked about that big article that came out. She was the author of that. She recently on a podcast has come out and said, like, basically the same thing. This is all connected. The pair, like
Mm.
afterlife, death, like paranormal sort of experiences, angels, right, demons, this sort of thing. It's like all connected together, converging. Yeah, that's fascinating, to be honest with you. Well, I never heard of this.
Yeah, but it's also, if you think about dragons, for example, how many cultures have dragons? I mean, we have dragons here in Europe, and then
Yeah,
the dragons, of course, in Asia, right? I mean,
yeah,
I know it sounds ludicrous, but there's not really any evidence that dragons never existed, right?
sure.
Okay, fair enough. We don't have evidence that they existed either. But I mean, so all these things, a lot of people saw these in the past for whatever reason. We don't see them today, right? And I think it's always too often, it's basically just they're treated like these witnesses who see these UFOs today. They're just treated as people, well, they were just naive and they thought like a thunderstorm was the sign of God or whatever, right? And it was just really a natural phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
So I think people, I mean, we often treat people in the past in these stories, these like fairy tales of, trolls and, angels and who knows what, right? As something that's impossible because we often see the world, I think, too narrowly through a scientific um, perspective. Of course, science is necessary and has its point of view, but science is also limited, right? There are things that go beyond science, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Wow. Wow. This is yeah, that is fascinating. Wow. Okay. All right, okay, so what was episode 3 for you, Sebastian? Was that the Fukushima or
No,
the
that was the
Stephenville?
Texas. That was the Texas one, the
The
Stephenville. Yeah, I
Texas
mean, I
one.
know Stephenville. I've been there, and of course,
Yeah.
I mean the whole area and looked very familiar to me. Yeah, I thought, yeah, it was incredible, right? Again, these many hundreds of people who had seen these huge. They said 1.5 miles long, right? Light in the sky,
Yeah.
incredible, right? So a very fascinating story. And again, what I thought was very moving there that lots of these people they paid a high price, right, for sort of coming out as someone who had seen these, right? I mean, this one guy's business suffered, his marriage. He got a divorce, right, because his wife thought he was crazy, and all these sort of things, right? So these people really suffered for investigating these sightings that they had, right? So yeah, I thought it was really fascinating. I think there's another famous sighting in Texas, right? Isn't there like in Midland or so?
Yeah, there's actually quite a few here in Texas, which makes sense. We got a big state here, a lot of open space.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is. And I found it interesting that this is the one they wanted to focus on. It's definitely the most well-known, Stephenville. I'm actually, I guess from where I'm at here in Texas, I'm about an hour and a half from Stephenville, roughly. And yeah, small little Texas town just west of Fort Worth, right? So in north central Texas, you could say, is where Stephenville is. Not a super small town, but definitely not a big city, as they would say, like going to Fort Worth, that we're going to the big city, right? So they're yeah, just a regular place, regular people, cattle town. And yeah, like you said, here I'll read a little description about roughly what happened here. It says this was in 2008, so the most recent. Well, I guess that's not true. The Fukushima would be the most recent, but very recent. So not just like, this wasn't in the 50s. This was 2008. Residents of Stephenville, Texas, residents. So this isn't, again, like one person, found themselves thrust into the spotlight as they reported a series of inexplicable UFO sightings. The incident garnered worldwide attention and skepticism, prompting a thorough investigation. Witnesses, including local business leaders, law enforcement officers, and ordinary citizens, described blinding lights, unusual shapes, and an overwhelming sense of peace. Interesting. Messengers dives into the captivating event and challenges viewers to question not whether UFOs are real, but rather what version of reality we subscribe to. Interesting way to write that. Yeah. What to me the most fascinating was the guy they couldn't get interviewed in the episode. So, Amy, we're not spoiling anything. You could definitely watch this and still get a lot out of it. I promise you. But there's one person in particular. They talk about his experience, but he stopped doing interviews a long time ago because supposedly he got visited by the government and was told, who knows what he was, right? Threatened. That's the implication. And he refused to do the Netflix series. But that's who I want to hear from, was that guy, because he had like what you would describe as a close encounter with a being and the ship. And he was just everyone describes him as just normal guy, not some whack, just normal Jim Bob who one day just said this out hunting. And his story is fascinating. The law enforcement officer that's in the episode, he was afraid to come out because he's a constable. So a constable in Texas is like a sheriff, sort of, but you're voted in. So it's not like you go apply for the job and get in, right? It's not like a regular police officer. You have to be voted in by your constituents. So clearly someone who's respected in the community. And he had a sighting, and he also captured another sighting on his dash cam. And he said his dash cam would stop working. Like it wasn't, and he had never had that happen before. He had filmed a bazillion things, never had a video go bad, but for some reason trying to film this UFO that he saw, it just didn't work. But him wanting to come out, I thought was helpful, just because of his position, his credibility, and he thought it would affect his career, right? He thought, oh well, there goes my job. Nobody's going to want to vote for me again as constable. I'm out here talking about UFOs. But like Sebastian mentioned, that the one guy whose marriage fell apart, his business, that guy called him and was like, please, please say what you saw. Like, it'll help me. Like, it'll help all of us. If you come out, your credibility will help this. It's just fascinating. I mean, so many people, they had this like meeting at the local like city hall, and they, the story goes in the episode, they put out 30 folding chairs. We're like, this should be enough, right, for everyone coming. Just hundreds of people showed up to this thing, just completely out of and news media, everything, just like, what's going on in Stephenville? So clearly a big part of the town wanted to know what is happening. Why, because if you looked at a map, it was everywhere, just sightings everywhere from all kinds of different people, different backgrounds, right? Different ethnicities, gender, just a mixed makeup of all these different people having similar sightings, not all in the same night, taking place over the course of weeks. And I found that fascinating. And some guy from MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, whatever,
we had them on here, right? You had them on MUFON, right?
Yeah. We're going to be putting that episode out. I'm trying to figure out how to release it, because on its own, I don't know how well it works, to be honest. That interview was interesting. The woman from that, she's one of the head people at MUFON. I did interview her, and it was interesting. Maybe I should just raw release it and see what people think. But anyway, they had a person come out, a scientist, and he got radar data from the FAA, right, the Federal Aviation, and he was able to sort of verify sighting from the constable of how the trajectory, the speed it took, and then how it just took off, and exactly matched his sighting, like radar data matching this guy's sighting, the time, the direction, everything what this guy saw in the sky. And it's fascinating. That part is fascinating. And in fact, they mentioned at the end of the episode, the FAA will no longer release that data to the public anymore because of that. So that's quite fascinating. That became a nationwide thing, right? So something that happened in Stephenville, Texas, they released the radar data for it, and then they're just like, nope, we'll never do that again. Why is that? Like, what was so wrong about that? found that kind of dubious, to be honest. So I don't know. What do you think, Sebastian?
Yeah, that I thought was very dubious, definitely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing we hadn't mentioned here yet is that so that they saw this whatever appearance craft, and then briefly afterwards they saw it followed by F-16 fighters,
Oh,
right?
you're right. Yes,
And
you're right.
yeah, and initially the military denied that F-16s had been out that night, right? But then afterwards they had to kind of track back and said, well, it was some sort of misunderstanding, blah blah blah, right? So they confirmed there had been F-16s out. So the F-16s, the presence of the F-16s in one way makes me think, okay, well, they are aware and they're chasing this thing, but it also makes me think a bit, is it a military thing, some military exercises, some new weapon they're playing with, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that I'm not sure about.
Yeah, no, that's a good point for sure. That's been a sort of a similarity, a common denominator in many sightings where someone will say, I saw this crazy thing, and then a couple minutes later, two F-16s fly by. A video I did about Aaron Rodgers, famous New York Jets quarterback, who during training camp this year up in New Jersey saw the same thing, came out of his house he's staying in, saw this crazy thing, it flew off, and then these two F-16s came by a couple minutes later chasing this thing. So it's like a very similar thing. Like you said, Sebastian, it does that. Maybe it is this military testing, right, of some new project, some new thing. Who knows? It is interesting that is something that will follow certain UFO sightings. That will be a part of the UFO sighting, that element. And it is interesting that they denied it at first, but let's be real. I could see why they would deny it to begin with, right? I don't think that's necessarily that kind of crazy. I could see the military like, well, why are we going to tell you what kind of training we're doing out there? You know, that's the whole point. It's secretive. And then to come back later and say, no, was it to try to cover up the sighting? And like, because if you were testing some crazy new thing, you would just stick with that story, I think. No, we weren't out there. So I don't know. I don't know. It's like just trying to piece together a puzzle without the puzzle pieces. You don't actually have the puzzle pieces, but you're trying to make the puzzle. Like it's really hard to do this. It's clearly all speculation. But again,
the second thing that was really significant for me was that it was completely silent, right? So there was no sound, right?
Yeah.
So there was no no wind, no engine sound, nothing, right? It was completely silent.
Yeah, that's a great point because they hear the F-16s go by. You cannot. I've had F-16. I've been to air shows, Blue Angels. I've seen all that. I've F-16s flying over. You hear it. It's like there is no way denying it. It can sometimes shake your house, to be honest with you. So there's no denying when a jet like that flies over. So the fact that, like you said, initially their UFO they're seeing is dead silent is odd. That is odd because even an F-16 so high up in the air, you feel it, you hear it, and you see the plume. Like it's very clear that an airplane, a jet is flying over. There's no like you can clearly see it. So yeah, it is fascinating, man. To be honest, it is fascinating. Again, such a well put together show. Highly recommend everyone watch every episode. Amy, you'll be excited to see the next two for sure, which will be the Texas one. And let's just jump to this next one here, the Fukushima, because that, to me, again, just had the most exciting UFO video, period. One of the best ones I've ever seen. And of course, here it is. In 2011, off the coast of Japan, the chief monk of, I'm going to get this wrong, Inmyeon Temple, pardon me, guys, I don't know how to say that correctly, made an astonishing sighting, a UFO he couldn't deny. Shortly after, an earthquake struck, triggering a devastating tsunami and the Fukushima nuclear plant disaster. During the tumultuous events that followed, many residents reported seeing mysterious balls of light over the damaged reactors, leading some to believe they indicated the presence of alien life forms. Lights Over Fukushima delves into these intriguing events and the unsettling possibility that extraterrestrial forces were at play during a momentous human catastrophe. Like Sebastian said earlier, though, that is all, and they do talk about it in the episode. That was believed to be souls of the dead that died in the tsunami, and then the corresponding floods that happened. And the explosion from the power plant, like they believe those lights were souls of the dead flying off. And they even talk about how, like, they would, when they were out looking for survivors, they would see lights above certain houses or cars or things where people were trapped, and they'd go and check, and there was a dead body there. Like, that's how they would know where to go look, was based on these lights. I found that pretty fascinating, to be honest with you. So yeah, it's kind of a mix of bringing those two worlds together, the afterlife and ET, into this one episode over Fukushima. So yeah, it's a devastating event, right? A devastating event that happened that killed a lot of people, made a lot of people homeless. I mean, devastated an entire town. And what's interesting is that temple was like one of the only buildings left remaining, was that monk temple. Like, it's quite interesting. And they believe they were protected by these UFOs. So look, that episode has this woman claiming to be an actual alien in it. So I'm just saying, be prepared. She's like, I'm an alien. Reincarnated. That's what she said. And then she starts speaking alien. She's just literally just like, I'm not joking. That happens. I was a little turned off by that. Like, whoa, okay, calm down. This is getting crazy. But I don't know. She's not hurting anybody. You know what I mean? She's just living her life. So do your thing. But I don't know how much that leads to the credibility of the rest of it. I don't know. Right. Let people tell their story, and then you can decide for your own what you think about that. So yeah, it reminded me of like people who speak in tongues here in the Pentecostal church, like in Texas or really anywhere in the States. That same thing will happen.
No, it did remind me of the same thing. Remind me of the same thing. Yeah.
It was just like that. Because that's what it sounds like and looks like and whatever. So yeah, which is interesting. Right. That's also interesting. This woman is clearly not part of the Pentecostal church. She probably doesn't know anything about that. Right. So that's interesting. That's an interesting tie. But for me, okay, I'm going to share my screen now to show this video because I've been teasing it the whole time.
あの原発ですから放射能エネルギーありますよね。だからその UFO は人間を助けに来たというか、それを調整した磁場調整じゃないかって、それは私が勝手に考えてます。確かに目撃者いますね。UFO 見た。
Okay, this video is very similar to it that I'm going to show you. Okay, so this took place in 2010 New York City, and it's very similar to the style of the Fukushima lights. Okay, right there. And right there. So it's just people standing on the street. Like, what is going on? And it's like 8 minutes, y'all. And it went for like 30 or 40 minutes, supposedly.
Where does it go afterwards?
They just fly off.
Oh,
All of
okay.
them just fly off. Like a cartoon, it's described. The one with Fukushima has like 15 of them. And they're just flying up, down, left, right, like move. So it's like not flares. And then they converge into one light. That's what's fascinating to me. The Fukushima one. And it's right over the power plant. Like you see the smoke coming off the power plant. I mean, it's mind-blowing. So honestly, it's very similar to this. Just exactly like this. Let's see. This is the most replayed part is right here. You see, there's some over here. It's really hard to see, but those just disappeared. There it goes. It just took off. See that? It just like again, and then more come, and like here, just real quick. There's a couple comments. This guy who was there that day, he said, "I never leave comments on anything, but I find this video." I sought to find this video because I was there that day. I stood there for a very long time, and it was really an insane experience. For those saying these were weather balloons, etc., trust me, they weren't. What this footage didn't capture was that as it continued, more of these objects appeared, making all sorts of shapes, joining closer together, then quickly going apart, just hovering. All of a sudden, they disappeared in a way that I can only describe as cartoonish. Like I said, it was insane.
Wow. What a comment.
So, yeah. This one was kind of funny. I just thought I'd read it. It says, can we take a moment to appreciate the person who's filming this without speaking? My wife cannot film so much as a 3-second clip without speaking over it like she is John Madden at a Super Bowl.
Yeah, props.
Oh, man. Granted, anyone shooting a UFO video that happens to. All right, let me stop sharing here. Oh, Sebastian. We lost Sebastian.
Yeah, I don't know where he went. Looked up and he was gone.
I did too. Okay. Let me see. Is he coming back? Close. Okay. Yeah, we lost Sebastian. I'm sure he'll be back. I don't know what happened. Guys, see, they're out to get us. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
They disconnected him. He was
like the Roadrunner.
He was too close to the truth. And I'm kidding. Yes. All right, we'll wait for Sebastian to come back. I don't know if he is, but that happens on Zoom, guys. So anyway, yeah, I don't know. What do you think of that video, Amy?
I mean, yeah, it's crazy.
Weird.
It?
It's just weird, right? It's just
weird. Yeah, it's
weird.
Yeah,
that's what the Fukushima
I kind of want to watch
like.
it in full. You know, the full 40 minutes.
Yeah,
just
I'm gonna put I'll put a link for that. It's only 8 minutes. That video. I'll put a link to that, of course, for everyone to watch and for you too, Amy. And then when you watch the Fukushima episode, you'll know exactly what video I'm talking about when it pops up, because you know, you'll notice it, and it's, to me, far more even compelling than this one. Again, it's right over the crash site of the incident, smoke coming out of the nuclear plant, and these lights are just going. I mean, it looks. Wow. I just can't. I'm just telling you, I've seen a lot of UFO stuff doing this recently. Right, like I've seen a lot of stuff. Yeah. I've never seen a video like that, and again, I can't find it anywhere else. So I don't know why. Normally, those videos are taken and then put it. You know, this one I cannot find the original. Maybe they got the copyright and they pulled it down from everywhere else. I guess that's possible. But
crazy. I
don't know. And you hear people yelling in the background, like, that's a UFO too. What's going on?
Really?
My God. In Japanese, of course, right? They're yelling in Japanese, like, oh my God, UFO. We're like, what is this? You know, a bunch of people seeing it, like, what in the hell is happening? And the lights are far more like bright and big and like, you know what I mean?
Is it at nighttime?
No, daytime. No. Middle of the day. I'm telling, the video is mind blowing to me, because again, it's just the way they move. and then they all converge to one at the end, and that's what blew me away. That's where I was like, what is happening? This looks just as strange. It's just strange looking. Could it be explained with something prosaic and regular? Yeah, I guess. What? I don't know. Helicopters, doubt. I just don't see how. That's weird. Planes, no. When you see the way they're moving, they're just not planes. Could
I'm
it
looking
be
forward to seeing the next
drones?
episode now. Well, the episode, whether it's the next one or not.
Yeah, I don't know what order it is for you. For me, it's the very last one. So you still have the Texas one and this Japanese, the Fukushima one, to watch. Yeah, that there, it's just fascinating to me. I don't know what it could be. It's not flares. The way they move, it's just not flares. Just come up and come down. They don't do all of this. Could it be drones? Yeah, I guess that's possible. But why would they be so brightly lit in the middle of the day like that?
Yeah, exactly. And it's
Sebastian just messaged me real quick.
You know, there's no randomness to their movements. They're, you know, I don't know how to explain it. They're synchronized.
Yeah,
and if it were drones, you'd expect them to make, you know, do little darts, and maybe one would go off, you know. But
it's when you see the Fukushima one, it's the convergence at the end for me that just how or why, like, and you think, oh well, maybe they're not converging to one, they're behind different points. Well, then how would they line up perfectly for the line of sight for the camera like that? You know what I mean? Because what angle you're at, does that make sense? Like, are they at different distances and it just looks like they're converging? I mean, what are the odds that it's exactly what the way the camera's filming, right? I mean, that just that seems very odd. So to me, they are coming to the same point in space and time together, these light, but why, how, what? It's crazy. I would have been terrified if I saw that, if I'm being honest. I would have been back inside. Let's get out of here. I'm not taking any chances. Especially with nuclear power plant just exploded. There's a tidal wave, flooding. Now you're seeing these crazy lights. Like, man, those poor Japanese people, man, that day. That just devastating for all of that to be happening at the same time. So Sebastian messaged me real quick. He just said, sorry, dropped out, some technical issues here. Guys in black suits are here. I'm just kidding. He didn't write that. He didn't write that. Twins showed up at his door. The twins are here. So anyway, yes. Everyone, please check out Encounters. Amy, you got 2 more to watch, which is great. Yeah, that'll be exciting. And yeah, I'm curious to hear what everyone says in the comments. People are definitely not afraid to leave their opinions now on the Vetted channel, so keep them coming. We enjoy them. And real quick, I have to shout out, our goal was to reach 500 subscribers by the weekend. We far surpassed that. So thank you to everyone, all the new subscribers and all the new growth we're having. Thank you to everyone for supporting and jumping behind us here. It's great. We're going to keep going with this. So yeah, very, very excited for a bunch of new videos I got coming out this week. Again, every day at noon, I put out a new video, and excited to get everyone back for the podcast. Today was great. So yeah. Amy, any last thoughts about anything? I don't know. What? Okay.
I'm just excited to keep going, as you said. I can't wait to watch the rest of the Encounters episodes, and I'll report back next week.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, for sure. And if you have time, if you want, watch that Yes Theory about David Grusch. Yeah, you know, it's again nothing too crazy in there, but if you want to learn a little bit more about who David Grusch is, that's the one to watch, in my opinion. So anyway, all right, well, that'll do it for us this week, guys, on Vetted. Thank you guys again for joining. We'll see you next week on the podcast, and I will see everyone tomorrow on a new video. So, all right, Amy, have a good rest of the day there in the UK, and it's evening, and yeah, we'll talk soon.
Bye.
All right. Bye, guys. Peace.